Retired Cowboy spent years alone until 5 Apache widows changed his life forever. He thought he had left the world behind. The retired cowboy, once a famous scout on the frontier colonies, now lived alone on a small, rocky asteroid at the edge of human-settled space. His days were slow and quiet, marked by the steady hum of machines and the distant glow of distant suns. Most people in the galaxy had moved on, chasing wealth, adventure, or he had chosen a different path: peace and solitude. The asteroid had been his home for nearly 20 years. When he first arrived, it had been nothing but barren rock and dust. He had spent months building a small habitat from old shipping containers and scrap metal, reinforcing them with force fields scavenged from abandoned satellites. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Over time, he had learned to make it feel like home. He planted a small garden under a dome, growing vegetables that thrived despite the asteroid's low gravity. He even kept a few livestock like drones, machines shaped like goats and sheep that provided him with milk-like protein substitutes and a sense of companionship. Every morning he would wake before the sun rose and check the solar panels that powered his life. Then he would feed the drones, tend the garden, and repair whatever had broken overnight. Sometimes he would climb the rocky slopes of the asteroid, standing at the edge and staring at the stars. It was a kind of meditation. The stars seemed endless, stretching farther than the mind could imagine. He liked to think that each star was a home to someone, somewhere, living their own story. He had once been part of many such stories. The cowboy's past was full of adventure, exploration, and excitement. He had mapped dangerous asteroid belts, delivered supplies to colonies under threat, and even negotiated peace between rival settlements. His name had been known across the frontier worlds, and he had been proud of it. But those days were behind him. The galaxy had grown crowded, the frontiers were no longer dangerous, and most of the challenges he loved had vanished. Still, he never felt lonely. Not really. The hum of his machines and the rhythm of his routine were enough. He talked sometimes to the drones, giving them names and inventing personalities for them. Old Rusty, the goat-like drone, was stubborn and slow, always trying to sneak extra snacks from the garden. Little Spark, the sheep drone, was playful and curious, constantly wandering into places he shouldn't go. Their predictable behaviors brought him comfort. He also had his memories of friends long gone, colonies he had helped build, and the people he had met along the way. Those memories were a kind of company that no one else could provide. He could relive them whenever he wanted, imagining conversations and laughter, triumphs and mistakes. Sometimes he would sit in his small living area at night, drink a cup of synthesized coffee, and watch the stars while thinking about what had been. But one morning, everything changed. It was quiet as usual. The asteroid's rocky surface glimmered under the twin suns. The cowboy was repairing a broken panel on the edge of his dome when a faint, rhythmic beeping reached his ears. It was different from the usual alerts of his machines. This was a signal coming from somewhere far away. Curious, he activated his old communications array, dusting off layers of disuse. The equipment whirred to life, screens flickering, and then he saw it, a small, pulsing light on the display, blinking in a pattern that was clearly artificial. He frowned. No known human colony had been placed in this region for decades. Most of the planets here were considered uninhabitable. Yet the signal was unmistakably human. A voice came through, broken and static-filled, but alive. "Help, please, shelter," it said, barely audible but clear enough to send a shiver down his spine. The cowboy wiped his brow and leaned back. His life of solitude had not prepared him for this. His first instinct was to ignore it. After all, he had chosen peace and the galaxy was vast. Anyone needing help here would likely find someone else eventually. But the voice kept repeating. There was something in it, desperate yet calm, a strange combination of fear and hope. He could feel his old instincts stirring, the same instincts that had made him a scout, a problem solver, a hero in the eyes of many. He had ignored calls like this before, back when he was younger, and regretted it. That was a long time ago, and he had thought he had left that life behind. But the universe had other plans. After a moment, he activated his starcraft. It was small, patched together with parts from decades past, but it was reliable. The engines hummed as he ran checks. Every wire, every panel, every sensor needed to be perfect. He had maintained the craft for years, not expecting to ever use it again. But now, it seemed, he would. The journey to the signal was short in distance but long in preparation. He gathered supplies, rations, water, medical kits, and a few personal items he couldn't leave behind. An old cowboy hat, a journal filled with sketches, and a small family photograph from Earth that he had kept folded in his wallet. Memories, he thought, were sometimes as important as tools. As he flew toward the origin of the signal, the stars passed by in streaks, The cowboy felt something he hadn't felt in years: anticipation. The calm routine of his solitary life had been comforting, but it had also left a quiet ache. The voice calling for help was like a spark in that quiet. It reminded him that the galaxy was bigger than his asteroid, bigger than his routine. There were people out there who needed him, and he was still capable of helping. When he arrived at the coordinates, he was not prepared for what he saw. A small shuttle had landed precariously on a rocky outcrop, its hull scarred by travel through space. Emerging from the craft were 5 women, their movements cautious but deliberate. They were clearly human, but unlike anyone he had seen before. Their clothes were rugged and practical, adapted for survival on harsh planets. There was a quiet dignity in their posture, even though their eyes told stories of loss and endurance. The cowboy's first thought was amazement. These women had survived something he could not yet imagine. They had crossed the stars alone, or perhaps together, through challenges he could only guess at. And now, here they were, at his doorstep. He stepped forward cautiously, keeping his hands visible. I'm here to help, he said, his voice carrying a calm authority. He didn't need to know their story yet. The important thing was that they had arrived safely. The women looked at him with a mixture of relief and wariness. One of them, slightly older than the others, nodded and spoke first. We need shelter. Space between worlds is too dangerous for us alone. The cowboy nodded. You've come to the right place, he said. His voice was steady, though his heart raced. He had spent so long alone, he wasn't sure how to react to the presence of others. Not just people, but people who had clearly endured so much. He led them to his habitat, showing them the domed garden, the livestock drones, and the small living quarters he had built. The women observed everything carefully, asking questions, noting how he had adapted to isolation. There was an unspoken understanding forming between them. Each had survived incredible hardship, and each recognized that survival was not just about strength, it was about ingenuity, resourcefulness, and community. By evening, they were settled enough to share a small meal. The cowboy watched as they ate, noticing how their hands moved with practiced efficiency, how their eyes scanned the environment constantly. They were survivors, yes, but also teachers. He felt a strange mix of admiration and curiosity. These women had stories he wanted to hear. As night fell on the asteroid, the cowboy stood outside once more, looking at the stars. The quiet that had defined his life for 2 decades was no longer there. The hum of the habitat, the laughter and voices from within, the knowledge that others had arrived, all of it made the universe feel larger, more vibrant. He realized something important. Life was not meant to be endured alone. The solitude he had cherished was comforting, yes, but it had also been empty in ways he had ignored. These women, 5 strangers from a distant world, carrying their own history, pain, and wisdom, had changed everything with their arrival. And in that moment, he knew that his quiet life was over. Something new had begun. Something exciting. Something that would challenge him, teach him, and remind him of the very best parts of being human. The distress beacon had stopped blinking, but the story it had brought was just beginning. The morning sun stretched across the jagged surface of the asteroid, spilling golden light into the cowboy's small dome. Inside, the 5 women were awake early, quietly moving about the habitat. The cowboy watched them for a moment, fascinated by the way each handled the space as if it were a puzzle to be solved. There was Naya, the eldest, calm and steady. Her hands moved with precision as she examined the garden, checking the plants and drones, as if reading the story of this small world. She had sharp eyes that missed nothing. Then there was Luma, younger and quick, who ran her fingers over the control panels of the habitat with curiosity, clearly interested in the cowboy's old machines. The other 3, Mira, Sira, and Kira, worked together, sharing a quiet rhythm in everything they did, from tidying the living area to repairing minor cracks in the dome. The cowboy cleared his throat. I guess it's time we get to know each other, he said, trying to sound casual. I'm sure you have stories. I know I do. The women exchanged glances. Naya finally spoke. We do, she said, her voice steady with a hint of tiredness. But not all of them are easy to tell. Space changes people. And life changes them even more. He nodded, settling into a small chair. I understand, but stories help. They help me remember why we do what we do. And so they began. Naya spoke first. She told of their home planet, a desert-like world far beyond the settled systems. It had once been a thriving colony filled with farms and towns built by humans who carried the traditions of Earth's Apache tribes. Over generations they adapted to the harsh climate. They became strong, resilient, and deeply connected to their land. But a series of disasters had begun. Water systems failed, food supplies dwindled, and equipment that had lasted centuries suddenly broke down. Their world had become unforgiving, and survival had become a daily challenge. Luma, Mira, Sira, and Kira added their voices, filling in pieces of the story. They had traveled together across dangerous space routes, dodging cosmic storms and unpredictable asteroid fields. They had survived because they had learned to trust each other, share knowledge, and think creatively. Each woman had a skill that had helped them endure. Luma with mechanical repairs, Mira with navigation, Sira with medical knowledge, and Kira with data analysis and problem solving. Together, they were more than survivors. They were a team of pioneers. The cowboy listened, marveling at their resourcefulness. He could see the same spark he had once possessed when he was young, exploring unknown worlds and pushing limits. These women were not asking for help out of weakness. They were asking for shelter and guidance, yes, but also for partnership. They had survived because of their human ingenuity. After the stories, Naya leaned forward. "We didn't come here just for safety," she said. "We came because we need your help. And we have something important to share. Something that could change how humans survive in this part of the galaxy." The cowboy raised an eyebrow. "Go on," he said. His curiosity was piqued. Naya continued. "There is a source of energy hidden in a nebula not far from here. It is unlike anything humans have ever encountered. Clean, powerful, and stable. If we can reach it, we can help colonies that are struggling, or even failing. But the nebula is dangerous. Only a small group of humans thinking creatively could navigate it and access the energy safely." The cowboy's eyes narrowed. He felt the old excitement stir inside him. His quiet life had been peaceful, yes, but peace had a way of growing dull when adventure knocked at the door. This was not just a request. This was an opportunity, a test. And tests were something he had never been able to ignore. He leaned back and smiled. "Sounds like we have work to do," he said. The days that followed were filled with preparation. The women inspected the cowboy's old starcraft, a small ship that had carried him across countless systems. It was not fast, not fancy, and not designed for long journeys, but it had been kept in perfect condition. Luma and Kira examined every panel and circuit, taking notes and suggesting modifications. Mira adjusted the life support systems to accommodate the 5 women comfortably. Sira reviewed medical supplies and rationing plans. The cowboy watched, impressed by how quickly they adapted to the environment and understood the technology. They worked together as a team, each contributing ideas and solutions. At times, they argued gently, testing each other's assumptions, but always with respect. The cowboy realized that their approach was something he had always admired in humans: cooperation and ingenuity under pressure. During breaks, they shared small moments. The cowboy showed them his garden, explaining how he had adapted plants to the low-gravity conditions. They laughed as the drones wandered around, bumping into walls or stubbornly refusing to eat the food he offered. Naya told stories of her childhood, playing under twin suns and learning survival skills from her elders. Mira shared her favorite constellation stories, and Luma demonstrated simple mechanical tricks she had learned as a child. Even in the quiet moments, there was learning. The cowboy had spent years alone, and he had forgotten how much a person could gain from human connection. These women were teaching him new ways to think, new ways to problem solve, and reminding him of the strength of shared knowledge. As the day of departure approached, they held a meeting to plan the journey. Using star charts and old maps, they traced the safest route to the nebula. It was filled with hazards, clusters of debris, magnetic storms, and unpredictable gravitational shifts. But they approached it with confidence. They were not reckless. They were careful, thoughtful, and ready to rely on their skills and each other. The cowboy felt a surge of pride. These women were not just survivors. They were leaders, thinkers, and pioneers. They reminded him of why humanity had spread across the stars: creativity, resilience, and an unshakable desire to explore. That night, they gathered outside the dome. The twin suns had set, and the asteroid's surface glowed under the faint light of nearby planets. The 5 women looked out at the stars, each lost in their own thoughts. The cowboy stood with them, feeling a connection he hadn't felt in decades. For years, he had been alone. For years, he had thought solitude was enough. But looking at these women, he understood that life was richer when shared. Naya spoke quietly, almost to herself, but loud enough for the cowboy to hear. "The universe is vast, but we humans, we find ways to make it ours. Not by conquering it, but by understanding it, respecting it, and working together." The cowboy nodded. "Exactly," he said. "That's the way I've always seen it. And now, it seems, we're going to prove it again." As they returned to the habitat to rest before their journey, the cowboy's mind was alive with plans. The nebula awaited, filled with challenges that no machine alone could overcome. But humans, clever, determined humans, could face it. He felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the artificial sun heating the dome. For the first time in many years, he was eager for what was to come. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that this journey would not just change the women. It would change him too. Because the universe had a way of testing humans. And humans always found a way. The stars stretched endlessly above them, a canvas of mystery and wonder. The cowboy, the 5 widows, and the old starcraft were ready to step into that unknown. Together, they would face the nebula, the challenges it held, and the promise of a future shaped by ingenuity, courage, and the unshakable bond of shared human spirit. The adventure was just beginning, and the galaxy would remember that even in its quietest corners, humanity never truly stood alone. The starcraft hummed as it lifted off from the asteroid. The retired cowboy sat at the controls, feeling a thrill he hadn't experienced in decades. Behind him, the 5 women were busy checking their equipment, adjusting straps, and reviewing navigation charts. The nebula awaited, a swirling mass of gas and light, its edges glowing in soft shades of green and violet. It was beautiful, but it was also dangerous. Naya, seated beside the cowboy, pointed at the sensors. "We'll need to approach carefully," she said. "The nebula's magnetic fields can scramble instruments, and the gas clouds are dense enough to hide debris." He nodded. "I haven't flown through a nebula in years, but I've got a good feeling about this. We'll take it slow." Slowly, the starcraft entered the glowing clouds. Outside the window, the stars blurred as light bent through the gases. The interior of the ship hummed with tension and excitement. Mira monitored the shields, Luma adjusted the thrusters, Sierra prepared medical kits just in case, and Kira scanned data feeds for anomalies. Each woman's skill was essential, and the cowboy realized that this was what made humans extraordinary. Alone, none of them would have been able to survive. Together, they could face the impossible. The first challenge came quickly. The sensors began to flicker, displaying unusual readings. Small fragments of metallic debris floated unseen in the dense clouds, moving unpredictably with magnetic currents. The starcraft's automatic navigation system struggled to respond. "Manual controls," the cowboy said, gripping the helm. "We'll do this the old way." He took the controls, adjusting the thrusters with careful precision. Luma leaned over, offering calculations on the debris' movement patterns. "If we match the drift with the main engine, we can glide through the safest path," she explained. Naya studied the readings, suggesting minor adjustments to the shields to protect the ship from small impacts. Kira calculated the timing for each maneuver, and Mira monitored their vitals, keeping everyone calm and focused. Step by step, they moved through the first cluster. Sparks of energy danced across the sensors as they dodged fragments that might have destroyed lesser ships. The cowboy felt a surge of pride. These women were not only resourceful, they were fearless in the face of the unknown. After hours of careful navigation, they reached a calmer section of the nebula. The light shifted, glowing brighter as if welcoming them. Outside, massive gas formations swirled like clouds in a storm. But there was no wind here, only beauty and the hum of energy. "This is incredible," Kira whispered, eyes wide. "I've never seen anything like it." The cowboy smiled. "It reminds me why I loved this work. Out here you have to think, adapt, and keep your mind sharp. And when you succeed, it's magical." But their journey was far from over. As they moved deeper, the nebula grew denser. Electromagnetic storms pulsed through the clouds, causing instruments to flicker and alarms to beep. Navigation lights blinked unpredictably, and the crew had to rely on instinct, intuition, and teamwork. Luma suggested using the ship's external sensors to map the field in real time. "We can create a path by predicting how the gas will move," she said. She worked quickly, adjusting the sensors and feeding the data into Kira's calculations. Naya directed the cowboy, pointing out areas of low density where they could maneuver safely. Together they formed a rhythm, almost like a dance. The cowboy steered, the women calculated, adjusted, and guided. The nebula tested them, but it also revealed the power of human collaboration. Where a machine alone might fail, humans combined intelligence, creativity, and intuition to find solutions. Hours passed, and the nebula seemed to test their patience as much as their skill. Fatigue set in, but the group refused to slow. They shared quiet words of encouragement, laughter at minor mistakes, and simple gestures of reassurance. Even in the vast emptiness of space, humanity's warmth shone brightly. Finally, a glow appeared ahead, brighter and steadier than the surrounding clouds. "That must be it," Naya said, her voice trembling slightly. "The energy source." As they approached, they saw a massive structure suspended in the nebula's heart. It was unlike anything they had imagined, an alien station, ancient and glowing with internal light. Its surface shimmered, and intricate patterns of energy pulsed across it, almost as if it were alive. The sensors went haywire. The station's design suggested intelligence far beyond human understanding. The cowboy held his breath. "Looks like we're not alone," he said. Kira studied the data streams. "It's observing us," she said, "but it's not hostile. Not yet, anyway." Naya stepped forward. "We'll need to communicate. Carefully. This station, it's alive in a way, and we have to show it we mean no harm." Using the station's patterns as a guide, Luma and Kira crafted a simple signal, a sequence of lights and pulses that mirrored the station's energy rhythm. The Starcraft's instruments hummed as the pulses traveled outward. Moments passed like hours, and then a response came, a gentle ripple through the nebula's energy field, acknowledging their presence. The cowboy smiled. "They understand us. Or at least, they're willing to listen." For the next few hours, they worked together to learn more about the station. Naya analyzed the energy patterns, Mira checked for environmental hazards, and Luma fine-tuned the ship's systems to match the alien structure's rhythm. Slowly, they discovered the source's true nature. It was a stable, clean, and nearly limitless energy field, perfectly suited to power human colonies. But accessing it required precision, patience, and coordination, a task that no machine alone could accomplish. The cowboy realized something profound. Humans were uniquely capable of handling challenges like this. Machines could calculate and replicate, but humans could observe, adapt, and improvise. The station's energy responded to creativity, not just logic. It required intuition, something only intelligent, adaptable minds could provide. Together, the team devised a method to extract the energy safely. Each woman had a role. Luma monitored the mechanical systems, Kira coordinated data flows, Mira ensured health and safety, Sira kept the group calm and focused, and Naya oversaw the operation with strategic precision. The cowboy piloted the ship, balancing skill and instinct as they interacted with the alien station. Step by step, they drew energy into the Starcraft's storage units. The station pulsed with light and rhythm as if approving their careful, respectful approach. They were not exploiting it, they were cooperating with it. And the station seemed to understand. Hours passed, and exhaustion set in. Yet, there was exhilaration in the fatigue. They had achieved what few humans had ever attempted. They had faced the unknown, navigated danger, and succeeded not through force, but through intelligence, patience, and teamwork. Finally, the last energy units were secured. The nebula around them began to settle, the swirling clouds calming as if the station was returning to rest. The cowboy took a deep breath, looking at the 5 women beside him. Their faces shone with accomplishment, eyes reflecting the nebula's glow. "You did it," he said simply. "We did it." Naya smiled. "We did it together. That's what matters." The ship's engines powered up, ready for the journey back. The nebula had tested them in every way. Technical skill, patience, creativity. But humans had prevailed. They had proven that ingenuity, collaboration, and adaptability were their greatest strengths. As they exited the nebula, the stars came back into view, brilliant and infinite. The cowboy felt a sense of awe he hadn't experienced in decades. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and sometimes dangerous. But it was also full of possibility. And humans, with their creativity and spirit, were capable of more than even they could imagine. For the first time in years, the cowboy felt truly alive. His quiet life had ended, replaced by adventure, teamwork, and the reminder that humanity never truly stood alone. The 5 women, once strangers, were now partners, mentors, and friends. Together, they had faced the impossible and succeeded. And somewhere, deep in the nebula, the alien station pulsed once more, quietly observing the humans who had proved themselves worthy. The journey back to the colonies would not be easy. They still had to deliver the energy safely, navigate back through uncharted space, and ensure the technology was shared responsibly. But the cowboy knew one thing: humans working together could accomplish anything. Ingenuity, courage, and cooperation were more powerful than any hazard, any storm, or any unknown. The stars stretched endlessly around them, a reminder that the galaxy was vast, but also that humanity's reach could be just as boundless. The retired cowboy, the 5 Apache widows, and their small starcraft were a living testament to the power of shared knowledge, creativity, and determination. And the adventure was far from over. The journey back to the colonies was long, but filled with hope. The retired cowboy and the 5 women worked together seamlessly, their ship now carrying the precious energy harvested from the nebula. Each moment was an exercise in focus and trust. Every maneuver, every calculation, every adjustment mattered. The energy source was delicate, and one mistake could mean losing the power that could save countless lives. Naya monitored the energy flow with meticulous attention. "The units are stable," she said, her voice steady but tinged with excitement. If we manage the descent correctly, the colonies will have power for years. The cowboy smiled. That's what I like to hear. All that effort paying off. Luma leaned over a panel, scanning the route to the nearest colony. We're ahead of schedule, she reported. The gravitational fields of the smaller planets aren't interfering, and the Starcraft's shields are holding perfectly. Mira checked on everyone's physical condition. We're all fine. Keep hydrated and rest when you can. We need sharp minds for the final approach. Sierra handed each member a ration bar. Energy for the body. You'll need it, she said. Kira, ever the quiet observer, added, and energy for the mind. Remember, this is as much a test of strategy and problem-solving as it is about skill. The cowboy nodded. These words resonated with him. He had spent years alone mastering technical skills, survival, and exploration. But the past weeks had reminded him that the true strength of humans was not only in what they could do alone, but in what they could do together. As they approached the first colony, its lights became visible in the distance. Tiny cities glimmered against the dark planet below, showing signs of struggle but also resilience. The colony had been surviving on minimal resources, rationing every bit of energy and food. The people looked tired, worn, but hopeful. Naya activated the comms. This is Naya, she said. We come from beyond the nebula. We carry an energy source that will help your colony survive and thrive. The colonists' response was immediate. Messages of astonishment and relief flooded the system. It was clear they had feared running out of power, their survival threatened by harsh conditions and dwindling resources. Now, hope had arrived. The landing was careful but smooth. The Starcraft's thrusters adjusted constantly to maintain balance, guided by the cowboy's steady hands and Luma's precise calculations. Kira monitored readings, alerting the team to minor fluctuations in energy units. Together, they descended onto the colony's landing platform with grace and skill. The colonists gathered as the ship touched down. Their faces reflected exhaustion, but also joy. Children stared with wide eyes, adults shook hands with trembling gratitude, and elders nodded with quiet approval. Humanity had once again found a way to survive, not through power or weapons, but through ingenuity, collaboration, and courage. The cowboy and the 5 women stepped out, carrying the energy units with care. Naya led the way, speaking to the colony's leaders. This is stable energy from the nebula. It will power your systems, improve agriculture, and allow communication with other colonies. But more importantly, she continued, it shows what humans can accomplish when we work together. The colonists erupted in cheers. The energy was not just a gift, it was a reminder that humans could overcome any challenge, no matter how vast or dangerous. The cowboy watched the women speak with pride. He realized that this was humanity at its best, creative, resourceful, and united. Over the next several days, the team helped integrate the energy into the colony's systems. Luma and Kira ensured the technology connected seamlessly with existing infrastructure. Mira and Sierra helped optimize the colony's living conditions, making sure everyone could use the energy safely. Naya oversaw the process, guiding the colonists on how to manage it responsibly. The cowboy, standing on a hill overlooking the colony, felt a deep satisfaction. He had spent decades in quiet solitude, thinking he had left the galaxy behind. Now, he was part of a team that had changed lives, saved colonies, and reminded humanity of its own potential. That night, he and the 5 women sat together outside the habitat. The sky was alive with stars, the nebula's faint glow still visible in the distance. The colonists had returned to their homes, busy celebrating, repairing, and thriving. For the first time in a long while, the cowboy felt the warmth of human connection deeply. Naya broke the quiet. You know, she said, we could have tried to take this energy alone, but we didn't. We knew that humans are strongest together. The cowboy nodded. I've learned that again this week, and I'm glad I did. You've reminded me of the best parts of being human: courage, creativity, and caring for each other. Mira laughed softly. And here I thought I was just helping you remember how to handle a starcraft. Luma smiled, looking at the stars. We've all learned from each other. That's the beauty of teamwork. Kira, ever thoughtful, added, and this is just the beginning. There are other colonies out there that will need help. Other challenges waiting in space. Humans will face them, just like we did. Sierra nodded. And we'll be ready, together. The cowboy leaned back, gazing at the nebula in the distance. It had been a test of skill, patience, and ingenuity. And humans had succeeded, not because they had machines or weapons or luck, but because they had each other. Their minds, hearts, and cooperation had carried them through the impossible. Days turned into weeks as the team traveled to nearby colonies, sharing the energy and helping integrate systems. Each colony greeted them with gratitude and awe. The story of the retired cowboy and the 5 Apache widows spread quickly, inspiring hope across the frontier. Children dreamed of exploring the stars, engineers learned new methods, and leaders marveled at how humans could adapt and thrive. The cowboy, once isolated and alone, now found himself part of a movement, a revival of human ingenuity and spirit. The 5 women remained by his side, not as strangers but as partners, friends, and mentors. Their knowledge, experience, and courage had reminded him that humanity's strength lay in creativity, cooperation, and perseverance. One evening, after a particularly long day helping a colony optimize their energy distribution, the cowboy and the women sat quietly. The twin suns of the nearby system set in perfect harmony, casting long shadows and bathing the land in soft light. The cowboy felt a peace he had never known before. It was not the solitude he had once cherished, it was something deeper. It was connection, purpose, and the knowledge that humans, working together, could achieve greatness. Naya spoke, her voice calm and reflective. The galaxy is vast, but humans have a way of making it ours. Not by taking it, but by understanding it, working with it, and helping each other. The cowboy nodded. Exactly. We don't just survive, we thrive. And in the process, we remind ourselves why we matter. The women smiled, and for a moment the vast expanse of space seemed smaller, warmer, and alive with possibility. They had faced challenges, overcome fears, and brought hope to worlds that had almost given up. And they had done it together, proving the very best of human nature: creativity, courage, and cooperation. As they prepared to return to the asteroid for rest before their next journey, the cowboy looked at the stars and thought about the future. There were countless worlds still needing help, mysteries still waiting to be explored, and challenges only humans could face. And he knew that with these women, and all the humans who would follow, the galaxy was not so vast, nor humanity so small. The retired cowboy had spent years alone, thinking that life had ended in quiet solitude, but now he understood something he had forgotten. The universe was never lonely when humans refused to stand apart. When humans came together, when they used their minds, hearts, and ingenuity, they could achieve anything, and humanity had once again proven it. The stars stretched endlessly above them, but the retired cowboy, the 5 Apache widows, and their growing network of inspired colonists had already begun to leave their mark. They had faced the unknown, solved impossible problems, and brought light to worlds that had almost lost hope. The adventure that began with a distress signal from the stars had grown into something far greater than any one person could imagine. It was proof that humans, united and determined, were capable of incredible things. And as the twin suns set behind the mountains of the colony, the cowboy smiled. His quiet life was gone. In its place was a life full of purpose, connection, and endless possibilities. For humanity, the stars were not limits, they were invitations. And together, they would answer.